Excellent morning, marvelous afternoon, and wonderful evening. This is Carla from MindPlore with Carla and Friends, and we are here to talk about staying centered, staying within our own, as Abraham Hicks would say, staying within our own boundaries and who we are. It's something I know I struggle with at times, and I think everyone struggles with this at some point or another. And I am doing something that I need to correct. And we're going to be talking about that today and seeing how we can help each other stay centered, even during difficult times. It happens to everyone. No one is perfect in this world, but we all try our best to do what we can do at the time we're doing it. Now, I have Dr. Michelle Peticolas here, and Victor Irving Jenkins, and I'm hoping if we having some connection problems. I would like my panel to begin to introduce themselves, and we're going to start with ladies first. And Michelle, it's not on my page yet. It will be in a second. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, I'd be happy to. I'm Dr. Michelle Peticolas. I'm a grief and loss coach, and I help people to have a better life adventure by enabling them to master the 4 superpowers of this incredible life. And that is spirit, your body, which I have a lot to say about today in terms of mental health, your mind, which I have more to say about, and others. And you can find me on Facebook at Michelle Peticolas or
Michelle,
Secrets of Life and Death.
Topic. That's why I do that in the description so people know where.
So I didn't know that. That's fine.
Well, you know now. I know that you didn't know it, so you know now. What about the topic? How do you feel when it comes to staying centered? And there's someone, I don't know if it's Victor or Michelle, but if you have your Facebook pages open, make sure you mute your Facebook.
Okay. Let me make sure that I have the Carla thing off. Okay. So the topic of mental health, I mentioned already those 4 superpowers, the spirit, body, mind, and others. And I had an experience last night in which I thought I had gotten poison oak or poison ivy because the day before I had been in a garden of my friends picking raspberries. And I had a rash on one arm, and then I had a rash on the other arm. And then I put this stuff called D-limonene, which is supposed to take the oils out of your skin so that it can deal with the poison oak. And then my arms started burning. And then I had redness all over my arms and my stomach. And so I put a lot of cold water on my arms. And I went back to bed. And I imagined my body taking care of itself. The next morning, no rash, not any rash anywhere. Did I imagine that whole thing? There is more mystery to this body that we exist in than you can imagine. And I remembered that I have always been super sensitive to thoughts to what I think about. So, for example, I used to faint in grammar school when our teacher would talk about something which I thought was particularly gruesome, and I would literally faint in my seat and have to be sent to the nurse's office. So I have a hypersensitive body and a hypersensitive mind. What I want to make the point about here is that a lot of stuff that's going on inside of us has nothing to do with reality. It has to do with the body and its strange need to be safe, and the mind and the thoughts that we put there. So part of becoming mentally healthy is learning to master those. Back to you, Carla.
But when you say it has nothing to do with reality, how are you defining reality?
Well, in the example of the poison oak, I did not have poison oak. The rash was an emotional response to who knows what. Maybe it was just the universe saying, hey, I'll give you an experience you can talk about on Carla's show. It had no physiological grounding. And when it comes to the body, you think that what's going on in your body has got physical causes. But oftentimes those physical reactions could be emotional or mental.
Right. So is it true? And I just want to, because this is a point that I've been thinking about a lot recently. Can it be true that our thoughts are more powerful than the reality we see in front of us? And if so, how can we create our reality to be in alignment with our thoughts?
Well, we have to master our thoughts, don't we? And how do we master our thoughts? Personally, my experience is through spiritual practice. That's the only way I've ever learned to master my thoughts, is to learn how to breathe and calm the body and to get into a quiet state, so that lower brainstem, that lizard brain in ourselves, doesn't hijack the body and take it off somewhere weird. Carla, I can't tell you how amazing it was last night to have literally bumps and rash and stuff on my arms and my torso that totally vanished this morning. There was nothing there. Now, does that mean that I'm a healer and I healed my body overnight? Or did it not exist in the first place?
Well, that's the question. Did it really exist in your body? Or did they really exist in your mind, your fear, your concern about what is real and what isn't real?
Well, and the thing is that it manifested in my body. I mean, I confirmed it with my husband. He saw the rashes. He said, oh yeah, this looks like poison oak. But it's not there today. It's like, whoa, where'd they go?
And did your husband know? Is your husband working in your mind, or is your husband working in his mind?
I explain that a little bit better.
When your husband is thinking, when your husband is creating what's going in his mind or in his world, is that exactly the same as your world?
Well, I don't think we can ever say that. I don't think we can ever assume that that our worlds are the same.
So, saying that, can we say that the world changes and our perception changes depending on how we think?
Yes, but it's this interaction of those four superpowers I'm talking about. So the other person comes along and it tells us something, and then our mind goes, whoa, and we get all excited about it or frightened from it, and we have an emotional that can transfer into a physical reaction.
Right. And that's the point that I'm bringing up, is that I grew up thinking what's in the world is the reality, but is it what's in the world, or is it what's in our mind?
Well, and the fact of the matter is that we perceive the world through the organs of this body. And what we perceive is a narrow spectrum of what is actually out there. In fact, I was reading a bunch of books on psychedelics, and it turns out that we have a sensor in our brain that censors out most of our sensory experience so that we don't get overwhelmed. But when you take psychedelics, that sensor goes off online, and that's why you have this amazing experience, because you're actually experiencing a different experience of the world, a greater sensitivity, a greater awareness. Your sense of color and sound is really heightened. Anyway, that's what I read in Michael Pollan's book, Change Your Mind.
And that's the whole idea, that is that we need to change our minds and
Yes.
change our mindset. Victor, please introduce yourself and become a part of this conversation.
Okay. I am Victor Irving Jenkins, and I am an aficionado of the mind myself. I spend lots of time dealing with the mind. I'm in Sacramento, California. During the day, I spend my time driving around, making deliveries and planting things in here to grow.
And what do you have to say about this?
It's a subject of which I spent a lot of time, because in the earlier parts of my life, I wasn't really that excited about being alive. And I thought it was external things that was making that happen for me, but it was actually me. I have come to believe that not only is the reality that we describe depending upon what I'm thinking, but I now believe that my thinking is the reality. I think it's impossible to think one thing and have a different experience. I think our minds are creative, and the best thing that we could do with our time is decide what our life is to be like. Now, since we have already been deciding what our life is going to be like by the thoughts that we have had in the past, going forth, embracing the fact that our thoughts produce things, we could change our life by simply changing what we think and how we think. Carla, in some instances, I get really close to the thought that the only thing that's real is what's in my mind. And the things that's happening outside of my mind are created by my mind for some good to come to me. So if I find myself experiencing financial blessings, or if I find myself experiencing emotional blessings, it's because I have drawn those things to me in my mind by the dominating thoughts, by the thoughts that I have most of the time. And by being me and thinking what I think, I have attracted you. That's how I became a part of your show, is that I attracted you because what I have to say, I believe is helpful. And what you have to say is bringing things to me that I didn't know that I needed, but it's bringing them to me nevertheless. So the idea that my belief in life is the law of attraction, is that what you think about, you bring about. So I spend little time trying to control the events in my life, like the computer just now. I spend little time trying to control those and trying to get better at managing my mind's power, because I think that my mind is where the power lies.
Great. And Alex, are you here now? Where's your smile?
Yes, I am.
Do you know, I know you've heard a little of what's being said. Do you need a little recap? Because you've been gone and here and gone and here. What
That would be great.
About the mind and keeping yourself settled and together?
First of all, I would like to introduce myself. Well, I am.
Absolutely.
You can call me Alex if you want. I am from Brazil. I'm 21 years old. I'm getting old. Oh gosh. A few years ago, I was just 15, 16. Okay, that's okay. Well, I study languages at university, Portuguese, English, and literature. And I'm very happy to be with you guys. And following your question, I agree with Victor just said that sometimes, actually, for example, the problems outside of us, like maybe the accident or polarization, every kind of problem that we see in the world, they do not actually exist until we create or we invent them into our minds. You know, every problem every problem is just created in our minds. And like one day i was I was having my reflection time, and you know, in every season of our lives, we do have challenging moments. We have challenging moments. Sometimes we have happy moments. And in the challenging moments, I I focus on the positive side of it. Like if I don't have enough for something, I think about the days that I had enough, or at least I think that every season of life is just a moment. You know, we are just here to live. Life doesn't last forever. We have to enjoy it, whether we are going through happy moments or challenging moments. But anyway, to summarize it, we create our problems in our minds.
How do we?
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In your mind, how do you create? You don't need to mute yourself here, Alex. How do you create your problems? I agree wholeheartedly, but I want your thoughts on it.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but we say ruminating. We are always ruminating in our minds, you know. And so you do want to have our a mind that is not always crying all the time. You want to have a mind that wants to think, wants to reflect. Because if you want to have like just like a baby who is always crying, that's not going to work out in your life. So look for a mind that is always available, that is broad minded. You know, when you are broad minded, you allow every situation to come to your life, but you don't fight against it. You just accept the way it is. Like if you are sad, you can just tell yourself, hey, sadness is here. I am sad. If you are depressed, well, depression is here. Hi, depression. How are you today? And then that's how it works. And I've learned that with mindfulness, that in order to be happy, you decide it. I have a recommendation. If you like to read books, you can read The Happiness Trap. I don't know. I know the author, but I don't know how to say his name. And The Happiness Trap talks about the different kinds of mindsets that we create in order to be happy, and some traps that we put ourselves in.
And it's true. We put ourselves in a trap. We get stuck in a thought, and we don't realize that there may be a way to get out of it. And I was listening to an Abraham Hicks thing earlier today, and she basically was saying we get stuck, and that keeps us from being able to move forward. Michelle, what would you say to that? Because this is a big thing for you.
I'm looking for Pema Chodron's quote. I just heard it this Sunday at a yoga class about welcoming all of our emotions, and that if we truly surrender, accept, like Alex was saying, everything that shows up as an opportunity for learning, we truly learn everything we have to learn from all the great traditions, just with that practice of learning to accept our emotions. And many of us, certainly I included, I learned to tamp down my emotions at a very young age because I was hypersensitive. And I didn't like the feeling of feeling bad or being unwanted or whatever my 2-year-old mind was coming up with. And I shut it down. But the downside of that is that you exclude yourself from all the good emotions as well. And I believe that many of the males in our society have learned that technique of holding their emotions back because that's what they're taught. Don't be a baby, don't be a girl. Yeah, and I think that sometimes it's hard for men to understand their emotions, or they avoid them, or they're used to it. They don't even know that they're there, but they do. It makes it seem easy that, oh, I can just change my mind. But the body has its little fingertips on a laboratory of chemistry that can bring you to your knees if you don't watch out. So that's my take on it, is that that our life here is about learning how to not master, but to welcome and experience all the emotions that we have and not get afraid.
And I agree with you. I think I have a very dear friend who recently, in the past few months, said emotions are not real. And I turned around and I said, oh, so when you feel happy when you have success, that's not real? And he said, well, yeah, that's real. And I said, that's your emotions. And by shutting them down, and sometimes we do that, oh, I don't want to feel bad about this. And we keep on thinking, I don't want to feel bad. And we keep thinking that. And instead of attracting that positive thought, we're attracting that negative, and we become more and more negative. So it's important to learn a way to transfer that negative thought to a positive one. And I'd like to hear what everyone has to say on that, and how do they make that change?
Well, Carla, I would like to just say one thing in response to that, and that is what we resist persists. So that's why you have to let it in. But instead of being in so much of a hurry to transform it, to get curious and not to obsess about it, not to get mired in it, but to become curious. And that's where, for me, spirit comes in, because when I go to that higher place, then I can observe the emotion and be non-judgmental, to be detached, to be, okay, so where's this coming from? Like that whole experience with my body, it's like, whoa, where is that coming from?
Right, where was it? Was it coming from actual poison oak? Or was it coming from your mind thinking, I think I got it?
Well, the itchiness happened first, but that doesn't mean that the itchiness was poison oak. It just means that that's where my mind went. It's like, oh, especially when it started spreading.
Right. And I have to admit, on my back, I have an area that gets itchy all the time. And either I'll focus on it, or I focus on what I have to do, and that itchiness goes away. It's very natural. Victor,
Yes, Carla.
what do you have? I
And
want your thoughts on this too.
there are many different strategies that human beings use to cope, for lack of a better term. And whether or not a strategy works determines largely on whether you believe it or not. I believe that emotions are transient except when you resist them, which buys into what Michelle is talking about. What you resist persists. The difficulty is that the negative emotions feel so bad, we want to resist them. But in resisting them, we prolong them. If we can incorporate some of what Alex said, when a negative emotion comes by, notice it and just kind of go, oh, there's a negative emotion going by. Okay, be negative and then be gone. Bye now. So if you believe that, that emotions are transient, no emotion will stop you. No emotion will hurt you. No emotion will get a label of being good or bad for you because it's just a feeling. It's just an emotion. And once you manage the mindset of emotions being transient, the negative ones will stick around less and less, and the positive ones will stick around less and less as well. But you will be a much more balanced human being because you know that they're all just stuff. This is all that it is. And whether that enhances your life or not, it has the power to enhance your life if you believe it. Believing is something that many people talk about and think about, but some of us look for evidence. But when you get right down to it, Carla, when you believe something, you don't need no evidence because you believe it. The things that we believe now, just think of one or two things that you believe and see if you can prove it. And you'll find that no, you can't prove it, but you don't care. And the things that you don't believe, you'll never find any proof for it because you don't believe it. All this is under the umbrella of that powerful thing that we have called our mind. I so love the book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. I only regret, if there was such a thing as regret, that I don't have the qualifications, the letters behind my name. So the only thing that I can say about my take on the mind, my take on the balance of life is that I might not have a PhD in anything except results. Because I'm telling you, it's way different now than it was some years ago. Way different.
And when it becomes way different, you're feeling better. If you're feeling kind of down and low, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But just realize during that time, if you can remind yourself, hey, it happened. And I can smile about it because it happened. Dr. Seuss has this wonderful quote. Don't cry because it's done. Smile because it happened. I may not have it completely correct. But
we got it.
Alex, you don't need to put your hand up. Just jump in.
He's only 21. He doesn't know that yet.
He does know it. He just forgets.
He's trying to be respectful.
He's not trying, he's doing, but that's not necessarily being a part of the conversation. Alex,
Okay.
join in, please.
Well, I was going to say that the more we want, the less happy we are. You know, what creates sadness, stress, anxiety, depression it's from the moment that we want. We are always wanting, 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 wanting. And we are never satisfied with what we have in the present moment. And if we definitely are grateful what we have in the present moment, like that's what I have. And but we put ourselves in the trap of always wanting something. I want that car. I want to be happier, maybe. I want to be joyful. We are always wanting. And I think that we must analyze ourselves and really accept the present moment just the way it is, with no judgment. We don't need to judge it, whether it's good or bad. Just live in the flow.
I agree with you, Alex. However, for many people, including myself at times, many times actually, I get stuck in a thought. An example is my passport, which now has to be totally replaced, although I returned it. It got returned to me. It kind of bummed me out when I found that out. But at the same time, the passport, I'm grateful that I have enough information to be able to get another passport. So there's two parts. We can regret what happened in the past. And I may say something to you that upsets you, and you'll come back to me and say, Carla, I don't like what you said. And I'm like, well, I need to explain it to you and move forward. But I'll get stuck in the past because that happened 2 minutes ago. Or I'm worrying about the future. When will I get my passport? How long will it take this time? It didn't take much time last time, but we're talking about a passport that was lost, and I begin worrying and I get into that spiral. Instead of being in the moment and doing the actions that I need to do in order to move forward. And I think we all get stuck with that. Would you agree, Alex?
Yes, absolutely. Can I share one more thing?
That's why you're here, Alex.
Yeah. Share two more.
Yes, okay. I have a story that I remember back in 2021, I guess. I went with my grandmother to pick up my cousin in the airport because he was coming from another city. And then it was like 1 a.m. already, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And then after he arrived in our hometown, and then before we took Uber, and then it was 2 a.m. and the guy was already there. And then Uber was not accepting because it was very late. It was like 2 a.m. And my grandmother and the other guy, they were very anxious. How are we going to get to our home? How are we going to sleep? And then I told my mother, hey, slow down. We are still in our hometown. Maybe we can sleep here, and tomorrow we can take the bus, or maybe the Uber will accept in the morning. But don't worry. And after a few minutes, one Uber driver accepted, and then so he took us to our home. So basically, we should never worry because every moment is precious. And like, if you are desperately to get to that kind of destination, Don't worry, you will get there. It's like, I remember when I met Carla, like I was very shy and very quiet, and and I would never imagine my life how it is today if I was there in 2020 trying to be someone that I could not be at that moment. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah, we are all works in progress. Michelle, you look like something's on your mind.
Well, a lot of things, and I hope I can remember them, but I'll do the best I can. I want to remind people that sometimes it's not easy to make that shift to the present moment, that your body might hijack you. Remember, I said that the body has at its fingertips a whole array of chemistry that can bring you to your knees. So to have compassion for yourself, and my suggestion is to stay curious. And when you get into that place of curiosity, you get out of that place of judgment and blame. And this is the step towards being in the moment, which is what Alex talked about. The other way to get into the moment is to practice, to have a spiritual practice that develops that muscle in you so that you can get in the present moment. When you get into the present moment, it often involves deep breathing, which calms that lower brainstem and calms the body so that now you have capacity and access to the higher brain functions. And that's when you can start to change your mind. But don't rush it. Sometimes we are so motivated to try and get our mindset right so that we attract the right things that we push aside experiences, emotions that we actually need to spend some time with and recognize. And when you just crush them or tamp them down, you just hang out in your body, ready to explode at some unexpected time. So that's my 2 cents.
When you're talking about deep breathing, it brought up a thought for me. We are all connected by our breath. That's the essence of our lives. And yet we never give our breath, or not never, but many times, we don't give our breath that respect to go back to it. One way to get back to the breath or get back, open up your mind again, is to smile, is to laugh. People don't realize that. But the moment you put a smile on your face, there's these 2 glands right below your eyes. They send a message to the brain immediately saying, hey guys, it's time to relax. It's time to cells relax. And the cells begin to relax immediately, allowing us to put everything into our breath. Laughter is also another way to remove that stress that keeps us from the present moment. Our smiles and our laughter are strong techniques to bring us back to that present moment. Because when you are laughing, you can't think. You can just laugh, and it brings our mind back to quietness. Victor, did you want to add something?
We've touched on spirituality a time or two, and I'd like to actually just add something to that. Because in reality, I'm a God guy. I'm a Jesus Christ is God kind of a guy. That's how I live. And based on my assessment, the only way that God knows what I want and what I don't want is by what's on my mind, because he communicates with me with this wonderful thing called the mind. And the way that I know what's on my mind is by the things I say to myself. Because you see, no matter what it is you're thinking, if you're quietly thinking, the thoughts that are flying around might invade your space. But when you are speaking to your mind, when you're speaking to yourself, it is clear what's on your mind because you're saying it. What that means to me is I'm always going to win. We've all talked about how transient emotions are and how transient really everything is. Now, we've talked a little bit about obstacles and how to manage obstacles. Well, whatever it is that you believe in your subconscious mind, whatever it is that you believe in the depth of your subconscious mind is going to play out in your life. Situations and circumstances are going to evolve to pretty much prove and demonstrate what you believe to be the case. Now, when something happens that seems overwhelming, or when something happens that seems untenable, you just can't manage it, I always fall back on the belief that I have that God is all powerful and he can do anything. But on the other hand, if you never encounter any obstacles, if you never encounter any problems, how will you be able to prove how powerful God really is? So until you are in real trouble, and I think we all know what real trouble is, but until you are in real trouble, there's no way you can know how strong and how wonderful God is. So embrace the real trouble when it comes, because it's going to be temporary anyway. But it'll be less temporary. It'll be there less time if you can always remember, oh, wait a second, God's got my back. And that's how I manage it. You don't have to manage it that way, but that's how I manage it. I have to admit, though, I kind of wondered that it works so well. Why doesn't everybody have something like that? Why doesn't everyone? Yeah, take it. Why doesn't everyone have? Those of you that are watching, those of you that find what I'm saying is simply just a story. When I was experiencing the misery of COVID-19, when I was so miserable, when I was on my heels, I thought that was going to be it. One of the things I also believe is that God heals his people, right? I just happened to be listening to a preacher who said, right when I was in the thick of it, when I was on my, seemed like my deathbed, the preacher goes, how are you going to know how strong God is until you're in real trouble? And I got to tell you, that COVID-19 at my age, I was in real trouble.
Did you have COVID?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, let's not.
I
I don't
think everybody did.
But what you're saying is very important. It's, people say, I don't believe in God, or I don't believe in a higher power. We're not going to get into the religious thing. But if you are breathing and you are a part of this life, it is what it is. And if we look at things, we really don't have control over what's going to happen. This whole battle came together literally within 20 minutes last night. I had no idea where it was going. I almost canceled the show. And then I thought, oh, Alex likes to come. Michelle likes to come. I don't know if she's back from vacation yet. And Victor. And I just made the calls and it happened. Was I in control? I can't control whether these three people are going to come, but I can ask, and then we see what happens. And that's the whole thing in life. How are we connected? How do we make things happen in our lives to keep ourselves centered and not all over the place?
And Michelle looks marvelous. I'm glad to hear you say that. I was looking at her going, my God, but she got a new camera, she got new lights. She looks fantastic, more so than usual today. I guess that vacation must have done you right.
Well, let me tell you about that vacation. There was a lot of physical labor. which when you spend a lot of time in front of a computer is a good change. But I was doing a lot of filling holes, marking stumps, digging, raking, and hours and hours. But I guess it's good for the body. You know,
Yeah.
we often talk about stress as being bad, but to a certain extent, these bodies thrive on a certain amount of stress, not continuous stress, but periodic stress that literally trigger systems in your body to step up and actually increase your longevity. I bet you didn't know that. So
I bet you I did. And I bet-
But mentioning that, Michelle, you brought up a point. Yoga is not just sitting down and meditating. Yoga is moving the body. Yoga is connecting with the emotions, the intellect, and everything. And that happens in different ways. We connect with the intellect by reading books. We connect with our bodies through movement, through yoga asanas, but we don't look at it so clearly to know, hey, this is part of life. This is part of who we are. You're nodding your head, and then we need to get to Alex because although he's not saying it, I can smell it.
yeah.
Smell that he has something to say.
Well, I wanted to say something about what Victor was talking about, how when we have hardship, it allows God or divine to show its true power. But I sometimes think that my spirit or divine is coming in and throwing these monkey wrenches in my life in order for me to learn, to develop or to move to the next level. I know that in dream work, if you have a nightmare, instead of getting all freaked out about it, that's your body or your subconscious or your spirit trying to wake you up to something. And once you take that interpretation of the bad thing, it opens it up. And then you can say, oh, this actually was a gift. This actually was something that was valuable to me.
And we don't always see those gifts. There's a phrase that a cloud has a silver lining. And no matter what we do, that silver lining is always there. When someone, I'm going to use a very controversial thing, when someone dies, we're always sad. But we never look at the joy that person brought to our life and what joy and what we've learned from that person. And we look at someone who's been dying, inside for a long time because of some illness, they can't talk or they can't do something. Oh, that's so sad. But is it really sad, or is it a blessing that that person is leaving now? I don't know. Alex, you wanted to say something.
Yes, absolutely. I was just listening to you guys. Very, very, very nice information. I liked what Victor and Michelle were talking about hardships in life. And Victor, there is a story. It's a biblical story of a man called Job. And in the beginning of his life, everything was a paradise. Like he was very wealthy. He was very rich. He had lots of money in his time. He had a big family, a beautiful family. And then God saw that, and then the adversary as well. And then after some moments, he went through hardships in life. the story is very long. I'm just trying to summarize it. I'm just summarizing it.
Yeah.
And then there is a small text, a short text that I want to read. Then God spoke to Job directly. Can you begin to know my greatness? Can you instruct me? Job got the message. He didn't need to understand why things happened. He just needed to keep trusting God and God's love for him. Whatever, I don't know what you believe in, if you believe in a higher power, whatever you name it. But, we've got to trust in our experience, because our experience will teach us a lot. There is a saying, quote, I don't remember who it is from. It says, the best teacher is your experience, something like that.
I said that. That was
So,
me.
Yes, yes, yes. The best teacher is your experience in life. So, I'm 21 years old, and I don't know many things, but maybe one day I will be like someone like Victor, like Michelle, like Carla, and I want to learn more. And then that's it, guys. If you are just suffering or going through something, just remind yourself that you are valuable as well, that you matter, that you are important, just the way you are. And though this world is going a little bit crazy, but just remind yourself of that. Live in the present moment. Yes.
Hey, I just want to say, I'm mad that you are as smart and as good looking as you are at 21. I wasn't there until I was 40, or even more than 40. And for you to be as brilliant as you are, for you to be articulating as well as you do, and for you to look as good as you do at 21, that proves to me that life is just not fair. But I'm going to try to get over it, because I realize it's my problem.
So Victor, Victor, let's reframe that. Actually, what I'm seeing is, wow, if the young people are anything like Alex, there is hope for this civilization.
Right.
Yes, there is. And he's actually listening to us old people, which means that we are not run of the mill either.
Well, I don't have run of the mill people on this show. Ever. Or any, well, the English show is a little different.
Excuse me.
What?
I said, well, excuse me.
I have very special, wonderful people here. Alex, I've seen you grow since 2018. Was that when we first met?
No. 2020. 2020.
In 2 years. And I remember when you came and you said, I can't talk, or you put yourself down. Look how far you've grown and how you're doing now.
Go
on.
No, I thought that you had finished, but I've got one advice that I've received in my life. Listen to experienced people. Listen to people who know a lot. Listen to others, and then I think that listening and learning from other people is really powerful. And even in the area of mental health, because sometimes we are very selfish in our own ways. We need to open our minds so we can fly higher. And once we do that, we are able to live a better life. So listening is really powerful. And when you understand what others are talking talking to you, when you listen to what people are teaching you, and then when you apply that, when you understand that, that is that's something that can change your life in any area. So I think that's one advice that I like to remind all the time. Listen to other people, learn from other people. Even if you think that other people are wrong, don't criticize. Just get what they are talking about, see, check it, and pick up what's great, what's amazing.
Michelle.
Yes. I agree with what Alex is saying about listening to other people. In fact, even listening to a show like this can transform your mood in this moment, because you're hearing this and you're saying, oh yeah, that sounds right. I wanted to share one quote, I paraphrased, and it's from Albert Einstein. And he said something like, either the world is totally random and life is totally random, or it's all miracles. So you have a choice. You can go either way. Personally, I prefer the miracle idea. It's way more fun.
The point is, we need to remember the miracles that are happening. We often forget. Like when my passport and Wallen were taken, I got almost everything back. And
Wow.
that was a miracle.
Yeah.
There wasn't much money in there, except one of the quarters came back. I thought that was very interesting. One quarter, but there was a whole lot of change. But the point is, that was a miracle that it got back to me. And the whole time I kept on thinking, my passport is coming back. But I went and canceled it anyway. I should have listened to myself. And that in itself is a miracle, because I'm learning to listen to myself better. Victor.
Yes.
Awake or sleeping on us?
Oh no, I'm not sleeping. I'm practicing the skill that I need to develop more than any other skill I need to develop, and that's the skill of listening. Because when I hear things, when I hear things, I immediately have a thought deposited right after you say something, and in the past, that came right out of my mouth. But there's a saying that goes, you don't have to share every thought that you have. So that's all I was doing was just listening and appreciating what people were saying. And of course, I'm really thrilled with Alex. I'm going to be interviewing Alex on my show, on my podcast coming up soon, because what Michelle said about him being 21 and there being hope for the future, for the future of the world, I will bet that there's probably more people like Alex that's breathing oxygen. And since I have no children of my own, that means that I don't have any grandchildren either. So that means that if you have children or people in your family that's around Alex's age, I'm after them, because I believe that I've learned some stuff over the course of the years, and that the people in Alex's age group, they can take those things on to the future, because the world can use the contribution from all these young folks. But they have to get it from us, because our parents gave us what we've got. So I have to give it to the future, because I don't have any children of my own. So perhaps that's why I don't have any. So I can take people like Alex and take them to the next level. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you all enjoy the show.
And I want to say to you, Victor, I totally agree with what you're saying. I've seen Alex grow up in the past. Alex, you were 18 when we first met. So it's over.
Yes.
But maybe it was 2020.
Oh gosh.
I don't remember what year, because I remember you WhatsApping me and saying, I want to join the English show, but I don't know how to speak English. And you were
That was wrong.
But the point is,
Yes.
Alex, it is true that the youth today contains a lot of knowledge. And the youth teaches us as much as we teach the youth. And if only people could open up and realize that, realize you can learn from a baby many things, including smiling and laughing. Their determination to walk, they don't stop because they didn't walk the first time. Their determination to speak. All of these things we lose because we get stuck in the outer world. What will Victor think of me if I say this? Or what will Michelle think if I disagree with her? All those thoughts run through our minds. And it's because we were taught you don't say this, you don't say that, and you keep your mouth shut when you disagree. It's refreshing to have someone who comes and just speaks out. Alex, do you want to say something?
Well, you said something very important. And I believe that, like in my life, I've been into different situations. And even though the situations are really upside down, really like against me, I always try to remember that in order to win, we've got to practice and practice. And maybe we are going to be able to really get over the problems in our lives when we are like, as we were just talking about our mind, our mental health, you know, don't try to run away from sadness, anxiety. Just practice it, accept it. And one day you are gonna be anxious, sad again. And then this is not going to bother you anymore. So yes, it's the same with other people. Unfortunately, in our life, like it's the same at university. We have people who are different, who have different personalities. So I don't like to argue. I don't like to try to be the best or try to be correct in there, because you know, some people are just trying to win the race alone. And one thing that I've decided to do at university, in order to, instead of arguing with people who believe in different things, I'm helping other people. Like I have a guy who has a different kind of personality. He is autist. Is that correct? Autist in English?
Autistic.
Yeah,
Say the
autistic.
word.
Okay.
Yeah, autistic. Okay, go on.
Autistic. Yes, and then maybe he's going to listen to watch this video, but I don't know. He doesn't know that I am his mentor. He doesn't know, but the coordinator told me, as you are friendly with him, you can be his mentor. You can help him with the activities. And then yes, it's okay, but he doesn't know that I am his mentor, because if he knows, maybe he's gonna stop talking with me, because it's a different kind of spectrum.
Right.
So we just need to understand how things work. Yes.
And that's a very important point. And each person works differently from another person. We do
Yes.
need to close this show. I think Michelle's getting a little concerned. There's someone in the chat who wrote a really good quote, and it's Comber Abbas, who I know Alex knows. A father is a father to his children only, but a teacher is the father to many children. And that goes for all of us. If we are teachers for everyone, whether we want to or not. And Victor, if you want to meet some good kids, come to the English show or watch the English show. I make everyone on Sunday, I make everyone put on their Facebook names and connect with them. They would be, some of them would be excellent people for your podcast.
Okay, sister.
Having said that, I am going to end the show because we are over time. This ended up being an excellent show. I want to thank Alex and Victor and Michelle for being a part of this show. And let's wave goodbye. Everyone, Alex.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And I will be back on Thursday with a completely different group of people.